What is up guys, Greedy Knight here with the third episode of this special investigation series. This time we are tackling the Hardbone monsters Royal Ludroth, Aknosom, Barroth, and Basarios with Charge Blade. As usual, I'll be breaking down the best builds and strategies to counter each monster, so you can get their anomaly badge on your guild card. Let's get into it. Forlorn Arena, Infernal Springs, and the base arena are your go-to maps. This limits the monster to one area, and you can fight with a full bar of Spirit Bird health. You run one Palamute with the minigun and Speed Scroll, along with the Gathering Palico equipped with the Kitinator. You get paralysis, knockdowns, and passive materials. Lastly, for your followers, you run with Hanoa and Utsushi, both equipped with hunting horns for heals and damage. Each part has a damage threshold. Meeting this threshold will cause a flinch, a trip, or a topple. Here's the site I used to find these values. It will be linked down below. By meeting the flinch threshold by the listed amount, you can cause the monster to trip or topple depending on the hit zone, giving you a window of damage lasting for a listed amount of time. It cannot enter the Curio explosion animation if it is toppled or tripped, so you have an incentive to focus on respective parts. At the start of a hunt, you will always use counter peak performance on the roar to get instant red shield charge. Whenever a monster is exhausted by a Curio topple, it will never successfully fire a projectile. It will perform the hitboxes animation, giving a free window of damage while it is drooling from exhaustion. For the Curio explosion, it's on a fixed timer similar to Teostra's supernova. The only way to knock it out of the Curio state is by meeting a damage threshold. The Curio bubbles do not delay the timer, but act as a free chunk of damage to count towards the damage threshold. In other words, popping the Curio bubbles are not required to knock the monster out of the Curio state, but it does make it that much easier to do so. When the Curios start festering around the monster and the sound rings, that means you have 10 to 20 seconds before a monster turns into a nuke, which is why guard up 3 is mandatory to negate the explosion damage in case you can't deal enough damage in time. Aknosom is the first hunt because it's the only Spinning Axe matchup for this anomaly level. Coming off the heels of 7 prior Spinning Axe matchups, your hands should be warmed up enough to walk into this hunt without issue. Your builds rest between Water and Thunder. I recommend Thunder for the better hit zone spread overall, mainly because of the crown hit zone. Speaking of hit zones, the head, crown, legs, tail, and wings are the main targets. They are always present for you to hit, requiring no effort to chop. The main body and neck are the worst hit zones, which are tucked behind the good hit zones, so you should experience very little drops in damage when fighting the Umbrella Bird. Snap its twig-like legs to get a trip and a free window to buzzaw its face. Also, swat it out of the air with vertical chops for knockdown. Aknosom has the usual triple fireball, a single fireball, and the fireball spam. A unique trait for the fireballs is that they bounce like Mario's fire flowers. You have to track the initial ball and its general path. If you guard it once, that fireball will no longer harm you. The triple fireball fires at 3 fixed angles. The single fireball fires straight at you. Fireball spam will spam the fireballs in different directions. If you want to stay aggressive, the guaranteed way to avoid the fireballs is to morphing events towards Aknosom during the windup. If you do not make it to the safe zone underneath Aknosom's wings, then you have to reactively guard fireballs. Your alternative is to wirebug away and wait for the fireballs to fizzle. The Crest Slam is a massive head slam. It knocks you down if you get hit, so use a waterfall to escape. It can be chained twice or used as a mix-up to other moves. The combined damage of 2 hit combos will always cart you, so prioritize blocking this move over the weaker hits. Hopping Pounces are Aknosom's version of the Yoshi Stomp. It will land with its rake-like talons up to 2 times, potentially comboing into the Crest Slam as a finisher. You can guard the entire move, but you can also morphing events away to maintain your positioning and preserve your second wirebug for Aknosom's approach option. Wing sweeps cover a wide area and deal a moderate amount of damage on hit. Your option is to ready stance. Aknosom often chains 2 together, so stay behind your shield for both animations. You need to be 2 evade lengths away to backpedal safely, or if you want to be super fancy, do a swap evade to leap over the sweep. Close the distance with an overhead chop, or morphing advance. Backwards kick knocks away hunters that get too close to its rear. It only does this move while flying, so have your shield ready while it's afloat. The Master Rank version of this move combines the wing sweeps and the backward flip, for a maximum of a 3-hit combo. It will reposition to hit you with the 3rd hit of the combo, so have your shield ready if you are out of range of Aknosom's sweeps. Leg Scratch is a short range move where Aknosom rakes underneath itself. You should only worry about it if you are within Aknosom's wingspan, and most of the time you are outside of this move's effective range. Reckless Charge is a charging move that has wide range due to Aknosom's large crest. It keeps going until it does a dive, while the Master Rank version stops the first charge midway with a hop, and Aknosom changes directions with the second charge. You can avoid this move with Morphing Advance due to how slow it is relative to its other attacks. There is a fast and slow version depicted by a javelin-like crest versus a fanned-out crest respectively. Most of the time it will use the slower charge. Retreating Somersault is when Aknosom backflips to safety, clawing your face in the process. The move will be called out by your hunter, and Aknosom commonly combos into a fireball spam move, but it can combo a charge or other moves as well. You have to ready stance the Retreating Somersault and then use Morphing Events to move to safety, as discussed in the fireball section. You use the Fire Super Spam set to shrivel up Royal Ludroth. While it is an Elembane friendly matchup, the damage increase of running the Rampage slot upgrade with Element level 6 augment is roughly 3 fire damage per file. If you hit the sub 25 hit zones, your total damage will be less than the Element 8 augment. You have more to lose than to gain for running Elembane, so stick with the default Rachna set. For hit zones, Royal Ludroth is a walking fire target. All of your files will output at least 700 damage and crack 1000 damage on the 30 hit zones. You have to line up your supers to dump 5k damage throughout the hunt, railgun your files parallel to Royal Ludroth's spine to output consistent damage. Break the forelegs and hind legs to cause a trip, and gain a free window to super. Standing Wide Sweep is a 2-hit move with the upward nudge being the first hitbox and the roll being the second hitbox. You can guard the entire move or guard the first hit and then counterpeek the second. It will be called up by your hunter. The Royal Ludroth launcher is an upward nudge that yeets you. It winds up by ducking sideways before launching you, so guard to deny the yeet. Royal Ludroth fires water bombs at its targets. It can fire a single shot or in 3 directions similar to Aknosom. It inflicts Water Blight, so guard them before popping an SAED. Royal Ludroth will mix this move up with a triple water bomb charge by spewing bombs as it passes. Since it will body check you and fling additional hitboxes at you, turtle behind your shield with the target guard until the Royal Ludroth stops its rampage. Side rolls are barrel rolls that only have 1 hitbox per roll. They can be chained together for a double barrel roll, so guard both / guard then counterpeek. It can mix up the roll with a hip check into roll as well. The double tail attack swats you away from Royal Ludroth. The tail sweep has Royal Ludroth curl its head at you and then sweep 270 degrees worth of coverage. Both are double hits, so guard / guard into counterpeek these attacks. Cutting the tail will shorten the range of these moves. For the body slam, Royal Ludroth slams both of its front legs and its spongy mane on the ground for a good range attack. It can double slam, so guard the first, then watch its follow-up. Lastly, Leviathan Rush is a sliding attack similar to Lagambi Slide. It charges at you in a straight path, finishing the rush with a drift. You can guard it or move to the side to avoid the attack. The default set for Barroth under normal circumstances is Ice. Regardless of whether it has mud armor, the Ice hit zones never change, providing consistent damage throughout the hunt. However, in non-muddy maps like Forlorn Arena and the default arena, Barroth is unable to reset its armor. Barroth starts with the water weak hit zones on its mud armor, and once that is peeled off, it is locked to fire weak hit zones. Since we are not time attacking, you start the hunt with the water set to wash off the mud, use a Farcaster, then swap to the fire set. Once you see your water damage drop to sub 100 damage, those particular parts are free of mud. After 3+ hit zones are cleansed of mud, you will switch to the fire set. You focus on the head for the all-important 40 fire hit zone and 50 water hit zone. You will always want to cleanse the head of mud so that you can abuse that 40 fire hit zone. Also during a Furious Charge, you can trade your super for healing, assuming you hit the head and have Blood Blight. If you pop your super starting from Barroth's hind legs or 2 evade links away from its head, you can reliably head snipe for those juicy 1300+ files. The Quick Head Slam is a hard-hitting head slam that acts as a finisher to bite combos. The Muddy Head Slam is the same variation of the Head Slam, but it hits harder from a longer windup and outputs 3 blobs of mud. Guard is always a safe option, especially if it combos into a Furious Charge, but depending on the follow-up you can counterpeak it and dump a super. Bite attacks come in 2 variations. The forward chomp moves Barroth forward as it tries to take a nibble out of you. You can guard it or move to the side to avoid it. The sideways chomp is a chomping sweep that can be comboed twice at maximum with a quick head slam finisher. Using morphing events away from Barroth or guarding are your main ways to stay safe. Counterpeak generally is not safe on these moves since they commonly have follow-up. Tail attacks have multiple variations which are chosen whenever you are standing behind Barroth, acting as a get off my butt option. The tail flick is a 2-hit move that can be responded with a double guard or a guard into counterpeak. The single tail slam hits in a straight line requiring a single guard or moving to the side to evade. Both of these moves have a muddy version scattering mud on the field, but they do not add any additional damage. Barroth can use these moves in conjunction with bite attacks to cover the front and back as necessary. The Muddy Side Tackle is Barroth's version of a hip check. It will scatter mud in the process. You can guard, counterpeak, or evade it, but since it will move through your shield, you should not pop a super after tanking the hit. Mud Scatter is called out by your hunter and Barroth will shake its muddy hide like a dog after a shower. This is a free window of damage because Barroth is idle and locked into a lengthy animation. The safe zone is in front of its face or facing its tail. Line up your super and let your files rip. Avoid the sides at all costs because the mud balls can trip you up and delay your ability to pop a super before the animation finishes. It's low-key funny that this move is called out even though it does no damage. Furious Charge hits like a whistling truck. The move is not called out. Barroth steams at the head and conducts a deadly freight train charge. If you are anything under full health, you will cart or be on death's door after tanking the hit. You can always guard or counterpeak this move, but you have to be far enough out of range to safely avoid it using Morphing Advance. Barroth combos the move from other attacks so it can do something like a forward chomp afterwards, and then perform another Furious Charge. The second you hear the train whistle, you have to be ready to guard or evade the move. You use the Dragon Super Spam set against Basarios. It is an abysmal Spinning Axe matchup and barely qualifies as a Super Spam matchup on paper thanks to its 18 Dragon hit zones. You can slot in Sleep Resistance or Poison Resistance to negate the gas moves, but these moves are telegraphed enough to justify omitting them from your build. You can always counterpeak these moves for a free super. You drop Elembane from the set because the elemental hit zones never exceed 25. As for hit zones, or rather, shit zones, there aren't any good cutting hit zones at the start of the hunt. It is why Super Spam is the default for this matchup since files ignore bad cutting hit zones. In base form, the Dragon and cutting hit zones are under the exploit thresholds, but once Basarios flames on, its glowing hit zones become element and weakness exploit friendly. Breaking parts will lock the Dragon hit zone to 23, at which point the fire mode only serves to improve your cutting damage. Since Basarios' body is blob-like, you can fire your files in its general direction and output good damage, only worrying about incoming attacks. You will need to maintain Element Slash for the Mind's Eye on Basarios' rock-hard body. The last thing you need is to bounce off at the wrong time and cart for it. And as usual, breaking its legs will cause a trip. As long as they remain unbroken, the Kitnator will only stagger Basarios, it will not trip it. The Burrow attack is a digging move. It counts as a single hitbox, so once you guard Basarios' Chuck Norris swim, you are safe from the burrowing animation. The surfacing animation is another hitbox, so guard the second hit. Basarios spews fireballs or beams. The fireball is telegraphed by the rock dragon performing a quote-unquote bow/head bob as it lobs its projectile. If you are standing at its feet, you will never get hit by the arcing flame orbs. There is a master rank version of this move, where it fires a triple volley in rapid succession. Since the fireballs don't bounce like Aknosoms, guard one ball and move into super range. The fire beam is telegraphed by Basarios slouching over and revving up its flame gland. It fires in a straight line, and you need guard up to block this attack. Intrepid Heart lets you bulldoze through it for free, but you can use counterpeak, guard, or just avoid the animation entirely for a super. For the gas moves, there are fire, poison, and sleeping gas. All of them are stationary and can be addressed by a counterpeak. if you are empty on files, or a guard point if you have files, and opt for the counter morph / boosted super. There's a large window afterwards, so you should always take advantage of this free window to super. The mobile fire gas move is a triple stomp of fiery gas. You have to guard the first 2 stomps, and you have the option to counterpeek the third, otherwise just morphing advance out of range to avoid Basarios' tantrum. The slow roll is Basarios' version of the barrel roll. In the base form it will only do a single roll, but when in rage it can do a double and continuous barrel roll. It will end the animation by laying on its belly. Both moves are just one continuous hitbox, so guard it once, and it will give you time to track its movement, reposition, and pop a super once it stops. The tail attacks come in the form of a spinning tail swipe and the tail sweep. The tail spin is a double spin that covers 180 degrees per spin. You can counterpeek the first hit of the combo, and you should be safe from the second hit for a free window to super, so long as you are away from the tail after the first animation ends. The tail sweep is Basarios' version of a booty bomb. It will swipe 2 to 3 times as it backpedals in your general direction. The good old guard will bulldoze through the sweeps, no matter the hit count. Lastly, the infamous hip check is in Basarios' move pool. Due to its massive size, you can only guard or counterpeek so long as you are in its range. You can morphing advance out of range to remain safe. Since it passes through your shield, a super is always a terrible option here because Basarios will be behind your effective range. Target guard to watch its follow-up. Like if this video was useful to you, consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Comment down below your thoughts on special investigations or anything in general. That's all I got for this one. Greedy Knight, signing out.